Hello, and welcome to my YouTube blog for May 2nd, 2012. Now, this is one of the few times I've actually made a YouTube vlog this close in succession to another, but under the circumstances, considering the medical fiasco I went through yesterday and what is now to come, I thought it might be a better idea, but I'll get into that part a little bit later. So, today I've decided to discuss with you the relatively lightweight subject I was going to bring you yesterday, but felt compelled to bring you another on, and that is the issue of my upcoming birthday. Now, even though I wasn't alive very long during it, really, you know, one of my favorite decades in my youth was the 1980s. As for my adolescence, that is discussed in another vlog I made called the 1990s, and I won't get into that too much. But kind of as an addendum to that, I just wanted to say that, you know, people of my generation, when they talk about the 90s, their opinions greatly differ with mine, as indicated in that previous blog I did about that, well, I like the 90s simply because it wasn't the 80s. You know, I feel bad about that. People talk about the 80s, there was a music culture, there was a film culture forced upon us. Things were forced upon us. Ronald Reagan and Reaganomics, and they bring this very heavy political tract into it that, you know, I suppose that I don't view the 80s with that at all. What I think about when I think of the 80s primarily is color. You'll notice I'm wearing a blue shirt, and I often wear bright primary colors, blue and neon pink and yellow and red or whatever in a lot of my videos. And I wear these in everyday life too. It's the way I commonly dress. And most people, as they do, ignore me, but there are some people who look at me as a bit odd for wearing these clothes. And it's confirmed by a few of my friends that a lot of it has to do with some connection to the 80s. And that's what I think of when I think of the 1980s. Color. We had Rainbow Bright, a cartoon whose central message was, well, the world needs more color, hence Rainbow Bright. You had bright, primary Art Deco colored outfits, which is considered modern kitsch today, but I consider it wonderful, and actually very tasteful. I do. And I don't see anything twisted about it. I mean, as I get older, I find I wear my 80s fashion sense a lot more proudly, and that flamboyance, and because it's arty, and I love the color of it, and human beings are colorful characters, and I don't see why we shouldn't express that. And, you know, yes, even if Ronald Reagan was a controversial president, and there were a lot of bad things that happened during that era politically, and I have to admit, I, like a lot of people in my generation, feared the idea of what Ronald Reagan called limited nuclear war. Now, you don't need to know how I knew about that. I mean, it was just in the news. But generally speaking, I thought, oh, come on, that's not going to happen. I really enjoyed, you know, the look of it. I mean, we had music. We had Michael Jackson in his prime. We had Madonna in her prime. We had Prince in his prime. I mean, what's not to like? You know, we had In Excess. People treat Rick Astley as if he's part of kitsch culture. I think he's great. Seriously great. I don't see it as kitsch at all. Now, the 80s didn't have its kitsch, but I think it did acknowledge it. Every decade has its cheesiness. But again, that's very subjective. But I wanted to say once and for all, I think the 80s, the 1980s, is probably one of the most culturally underrated decades in American history. Not because it was a bad decade, but mainly if you actually peel back the layers and the emotional layers that are there, I think the 1980s is really condemned because of the sloganeering of the culture of the following decade. But there's really nothing to condemn. I think in the society we need more of an infusion of color. We need more flamboyance, more of an artsiness in society. I see people out in the public wearing uninteresting clothes. I see them wearing uninteresting hairstyles. Not daring to be different, not daring to be bold, not daring to be artistic. And they're very unhappy people as a result. Wynton Marsalis once said that the point of art is its not being essential. You know, most of the things we have in life we don't need. You don't need a bed to sleep in. You don't need to cook food to eat it. I mean, most of the things we have in life we don't really need. I'll repeat that. But as far as the style we're going to be living in, or how it affects our emotions, it's the unessential things. It's the music. It's the art. It's our clothing. It's the little things we do inconsequentially every day that make life interesting to live. If it came down to survival, we could do it. We could do it without everything else we had. And, you know, people like the agrarians are saying that all the time. But in terms of making life interesting and inspiring our intellect and our minds and our creativity, that's another story. Yes, relying on the symbol is important sometimes. And I think that's what people look at in the 80s, that it was too flamboyant, too intense. And I think in some cases they link that intenseness toward economy, toward the emphasis on the wealthy. And I think that's why there's a rejection of that color. But you don't need to be wealthy to be colorful. I won't go into it too deep, but I am hardly a wealthy person, and I just don't manage to be colorful. So I think I enjoyed the 1980s because of that colorful quality, and I really wish that it would become a part of mainstream society as well. I think I'd enjoy myself a little bit more, and I think a lot of people would too, if they really thought about it. So my advice to you, you know, next time you hear somebody on a TV show, the 80s were corny. 80s fashion means kitsch. You heard that one? 80s fashion means kitsch? Just remember, when they say 80s fashion means kitsch, that means the color is kitsch. That means the brightness is kitsch. Is color and brightness really kitsch to you? Think about that one. Be surprised what you might find. Well, anyway, to clear this one up, I've got a tonsil operation coming up tomorrow. I probably won't be making another vlog for 4 or 5 days after that, which is typical. I mean, I don't do vlogs every day like this, but I need to give myself some recovery time. So wish me luck, everybody, and I'll talk to you post-op. And remember, color in your lives, very important.